Welcome everyone to this month's Free Traveler Confab. This is the Commoner Law's monthly gathering of freedom lovers from all over the country. We're starting a movement for sure. Every day I am online, I see more and more people waking up to the fact that the roadways are ours, that it is a right that we have to go from here to there and to travel. And it's not a privilege like the state wants you to believe for most people driving in most capacities. Of course, we've discussed on these monthly conferences many times that the privilege the state calls, as the state calls it, is for driving, which is for commercial purposes. And I don't know if it's controversial, but for most of us, we accept that the state can regulate the roadways for people doing commerce on the roads. But for the average person going to the grocery store, going to church, going to visit grandma, just taking your drive up to the mountains to see the snow or what have you, this is just general traveling. And we, the people of this land, are free to travel without interference. And that means everything from not needing to register your car, to get registration tags, to have license plates. Even the driver's license itself is not required for general travel. And then the question of traffic citations and the various regulations on the roadways, do they apply to us as well? Speed limits, stop signs, all form of traffic control is clearly for people who are regulated. But unless you do actual harm to anybody, then there is no crime. So let's say you're 5 miles over the speed limit, do you deserve to pay? So the conclusion I've come to is that this is a massive scheme and a fraud against the people to collect money, to use us all as a cash register, and to teach us from very young that we have to follow the rules. And if we don't, then we're going to get a ticket. And then if you get a ticket, you have to pay it. And if you don't pay it, you're going to lose your license. And if you lose your license, then you can't drive. And if you drive without a license, then you get another ticket, and then you have to pay that ticket. So it's just a big money-making scheme on the backs of the people. And so the state needs to find another way to finance its activities. As of today, we're declaring that it's over. We, the people of these United States, can go where we like. So I'm joined with my compatriot, David Rodriguez, as always, every second Tuesday. Put it on your calendar. Make sure you come back. We're here to really learn together and to discuss the various aspects of the vehicle codes that from state to state that we're all either subject to or not subject to. And then from time to time, we're fortunate to have a special guest, as we do tonight. We have Michael Geyer, whose website, Right to Travel, with the numeral 2 in the middle, numeral 2, righttotravel.com, is a place where you can go and you can read about his experiences in the courts pushing back on these unlawful traffic citations. And we're going to hear all about Mike's experience. First, we're going to learn about him personally and how he got started, as we all have a personal story of how we woke up to the fact that travel is a right and not a privilege, and what that means for us personally. And then he's going to tell us about his experiences in the courtrooms and how he succeeded against these traffic tickets, and what he's learned about the system and how it really is. That's priceless, right? So we're here together and we want to learn everything about one another. And we'll have a chance to hear from you about what you're doing, if you might be facing a ticket yourself, maybe you're in the courts. We want to find a way for people everywhere to free themselves of this fraud, and through education and just learning together really is what we're up to. So the spirit is very much of a confab, which means just a gathering of people talking about a subject that's important to us. And I thank you all for being here. You are the spearhead of the movement for free travel. We'll look back one day and we'll wonder how it could have been that we ever fell prey to such a silly fraud and such like a magician's sleight of hand. We were fooled, but because of people like you who come to these gatherings, we are together and we're learning together, and we're going to be the ones to shine the light on this fraud and one day transcend it and become free people once again. So go ahead and say hi, David. How you doing?
Hey, Clint, great to be with you all and all the attendees. And Michael, we've never met. Great to see you here. Looking forward to your information. And yes, such a great introduction, Clint. We're free to travel, and we'll look in the future backwards and say, how did we fall for it? Well, we didn't know our rights. We didn't know our unalienable freedoms given to us by God. And now we're starting to recognize the fact that we are here. We're all equal. Nobody's allowed to enslave anybody. And they've used these licenses and permits to make us be effectively as slaves. So it's not okay. It's unacceptable. And yeah, great speaker last few months, and we're excited for this gentleman tonight. Michael, great to have you, and Clint for putting this together. Thank you. And yeah, just to kind of re-emphasize what you said, Clint, is that we are the ones we've been waiting for. We're born free. It's your birthright. It's our birthright to be free. And this is almost like the new revolution, but I like to call it an evolution, and the self-ownership awakening that people are starting to really tap into, using technology to learn and to share and to connect with people and find out the remedies, because many of you know I was a right to travel activist for a few years, and I got in the crosshairs because of my activism down there in Santa Cruz. And so maybe we'll ask some questions for Michael later on here. But yes, thanks for hosting, Clint, and great to see you here, Michael, as well. Looking forward to your information and yeah, learning more about the right to travel.
Yes, cool. Yeah, I'm so happy to introduce to you all Michael Geyer. He came to me through Albra, who's with us. Albra Alexander had met him and recommended that he and I meet. And I'm really glad to have followed up on Albra's recommendation and met him. We've been talking a bit here, but I'm going to be learning along with you. There's some really solid experience here. That's what matters. So a lot of times, we're dealing with principles, which is critical, the principle of the right to travel and the freedom to travel. But until you actually get a ticket, until you actually go into court, until you find out, quote unquote, the hard way, you really are just speculating about how things might work, or what would work, or what could work. So it's priceless when we have somebody like Michael, who has committed himself, dedicated lots of time and energy, and it's not easy, I know, so that he can come back and tell us the truth of what happens when you do this or when you do that. But before all that, let's get to know Michael a little bit. I'm curious about how it all started. Were you like me? Were you told when you were 15 that you have to get a license if you want to drive and all that, or were you somehow magically free from the get-go?
Hey, Clint, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. Yes, exactly. Just like you said, when I was 15 and a half, I was told to have a driver's license, and it's all through the implication of basically my family, growing up, and no one officially told us this. Like, we don't get letters in the mail from, this Washington State Department of Licensing or the City of Everett Police. It's all implied. And but yeah, that's exactly how it came about. At 15 and a half, I got my learner's permit. By 16, I was driving. Never knew anything different. And I started getting interested in tickets a little bit because I had a teacher in high school that gave me and the class a few tips on how to beat tickets. And it had nothing to do with the right to travel, but it was basically the most basic tips, like was there children present on the street when you were speeding? Were you in a school zone or not? And little things. Did the police officer have permission to be parked where he was parked, issuing tickets? Was he on private property or public property? Little things like that. And shortly after that, I wasn't too interested in law at that point. And it was years later in 2015 when I got my first ticket. But I don't want to say my first ticket. My first ticket since then, right after I was 16. But basically a year since 2015, 2014 is when I started getting interested in law. I started watching YouTube videos. The first video I seen on the right to travel, the guy was breaking down basically the principles of a right versus a privilege. And it made perfect sense to me. And immediately after watching it, I'm sure it sounds silly to quite a few people, because it took me years to fully fact check that completely. But after watching that first video, I was sold, and I was like, this has to be real, based on my observation of life, based on all the little details I've noticed right after high school, getting a car, run-ins with the police. And I actually didn't even know what rights were. I didn't know what my rights were at all when I was 16, 17, 18. And cops would manipulate me and tell me that they're going to check here or there. And sometimes I'd have them ask, oh, can we check this or check that? And I didn't know I had the authority to say no, and that I had these rights. But you want me to continue starting from my the beginning of my journey?
Yeah, that first ticket you told me about.
Okay.
Yeah, I want everyone to hear about it.
Okay. So in 2015, February of 2015, I got a traffic infraction. It was late night, maybe midnight. It was in the city of Everett. It was an area where they just did construction on the freeway area. And there was no cars around. I hopped on the freeway on accident, not knowing it, because basically the route of the new construction kind of forced me to go down that way. And once I got on the entrance of the freeway, I realized I'm going to have to drive like 15 miles before I can turn around to get to the next exit. And so I was just like, I don't want to do that. There's no cars around. It's nighttime. So I'll just do a U-turn at the beginning of the entrance. And that's what I did. And I didn't realize there was a Washington State Patrol officer nearby. I didn't see him. He was hiding under the bridge. And he pulled me over, gave me a ticket for driving down a one-way street. And so I got the ticket. I very briefly articulated that I was traveling. It was my first experience with the officer on trying to assert my rights that I recently learned. And so it was intimidating. It was a little scary at first, of course. And so I didn't say too much, just telling him the facts, like, hey, I'm just traveling. I'm not driving, all the same spiel everyone goes through. And I took the ticket, and I decided to not pay it. And for 2 years straight, I didn't get any tickets. And I just, I had the collection company calling me, trying to get me to pay the bill and this and that. And then I started getting getting into multiple run-ins with the police, and they were pulling me over constantly and threatened to arrest me multiple times. And so I decided, okay, I'm gonna pay this ticket now, and then I will I'll fight back later. I'll continue studying, and I'll try to take them to court later, a later date. And basically after that, since 2015 to present day, I have 10 traffic infractions. And going back to the first ticket though, real quick, once I got that ticket, I thought, after watching those YouTube videos on the right to travel, I thought, well, I had this knowledge on the right to travel, basic knowledge. And I thought, what better way to fight the government, fight back? What better way than to fight back on a little traffic infraction that's a civil matter? It's not criminal, so I'm not risking going to jail. And so, that helped a lot. That was a big deal for me. And so I basically, I went to Googled the court's website, got a little basic information. I started writing my document. There's only a couple pages. And I found some case law online from various YouTube videos, some U.S. Supreme Court cases, some were state case law, state Supreme Courts and state appellate courts. And at that time, of course, I could not, I couldn't read the case citation. I couldn't understand it. It's a last name versus a last name, and then numbers after that. And so that was foreign to me at the time. I know how to read case citations today. There's so many different ones out there that they actually have a whole book created so people can learn how to read these case citations. And the main book, the most famous one in America, is called the Blue Book. And I believe 49 of the 50 states uses it. And the only state that I know that specifically does not use it is the state of Illinois. And they have their own style manual on case citations. But so after that, I I got a letter in the mail from the court saying they ruled against me, and I wasn't too sure what to do about it at the time. And I started reading some court. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt you. I just wanted to show people this case citation blue book guide.
Perfect. Also,
Yeah.
if you go to my website, I believe on my authorities page, you'll see that I talk about that book, and I have a link directly to their actual page where you can buy their book. I believe it's about $50. They're on the 20th edition today. And on the same note, there's a government style manual, and I found that there's basically one of the secret laws on the word person. I'm sure everyone here is familiar with the word person and natural person. But long story short, there's a little hidden gem in the government style manual. I have that link if anyone wants it. David Merlin's friend, I believe his name is Chris Chapman. He said it on one of his YouTube videos. I think it was on your channel last time I watched. And so that's where I got that from him. So yeah, 2015 to present day, I got 10 traffic infractions. I kept getting infractions. Some were on accident, and some I wouldn't necessarily say on purpose, but I was driving without plates at different times. Sometimes I had other vehicles, I had plates on it, but expired tabs. And I would just drive around like I'm doing nothing wrong, meaning if I see a police officer, I would not try to hide or slow down. A lot of times I would drive in front of them. One time I pulled up into the Half Price bookstore parking lot. There was like 6 or 7 cops there. I was going to buy a law dictionary. I went in, I bought a law dictionary. I came out, I walked past all of them, and like it was nothing, no big deal. I knew I was doing nothing wrong. I knew it would be a red flag. I knew it was pretty obvious that they would likely stop me, and they did. I started driving down the road, and their lights came on, and they pulled me over. I pulled into a well-lit area, and I parked in a spot where I feel like the officers would feel that I would not try to escape. I came to a parking spot where I couldn't drive away to. I wanted them to feel like I'm not a threat. And so anyways, they were just harping at me and barking at me hard, and just like giving me real intimidation tactics and threatening to arrest me. And they were going on and yelling at me for about 10 minutes straight. And I was just listening politely. And I, after they calmed down, they finally let me talk for a little bit. I had my law dictionary in the car. I had a law encyclopedia. I had a stack of paperwork, printed cases. And first I showed them the definition of driver in the law dictionary. And then some other law sources, case excerpts in the law encyclopedia called American Jurisprudence. And I got one of them to take me very serious, and he's like, well, he basically asked me, well, what are we doing here if this is real? And so I had one of them's attention for sure, and but his supervisor came over, gave me the ticket regardless. And so after the ticket, you got about 2 weeks to send in the citation and tell the court what you're going to do. There's 3 options on the back of the traffic infractions. One is you just mail them a check and pay it, saying you're guilty. 2 is called mitigation, which means you're still admitting guilt, but you want to explain why, because you have a good reason. Maybe your wife's pregnant and you're, racing to the hospital. And, say, Your Honor, my wife's pregnant. I'm on the way to the hospital. We got to deliver this baby. And, you're still admitting guilt, but you're asking the court to give you a little bit of mercy, basically, and lower the fine. And then number 3 is called a contested hearing, which I've always done a contested hearing. And I've learned a lot from this process from 2014 to today. I'm still at it. I'm still working on it. I just got a letter today from the Supreme Court of Washington State because I'm in the Supreme Court right now. I thought I was, I'll get to that in a little bit, I guess. But yeah, so one of my tickets was a crime, and I didn't register one of my automobiles that I purchased. And under one of the Washington State statutes, it's called failure to register a vehicle. I'm not sure the exact RCW at the moment, but it's an actual crime under the Motor Vehicle Code. And so I was looking at 6 months in jail. I I got $1,000 fine. I was able to get my family, some friends, my pastor of my church to come. And so it was nice to show the court that the people know me. I have people in my corner. I had no lawyer there, but it is important for you to get people to come. It's a piece of advice I would give to anybody. One, it keeps the judges and the prosecutors on their best behavior a little bit more. If they knew you had a lawyer in the room, their behavior would be a little bit better, most likely, because the court will obviously assume that your family or friends are ignorant of the law, as most people are. It's just the way it is. The law is vast, it's deep. There's thousands and hundreds of thousands of laws. Not one man on this earth can learn all of the laws. And I actually was going to paralegal school, and one of my teachers even said that too. I guess I'm going to continue with the experience then.
Maybe pick one case and take it all the way through to its conclusion.
Perfect. Okay.
Or one or two. I mean, any of them that are instructive, because we're not only listening for the specific mechanics of your strategy and the things that you've tried and whether they worked or didn't work, but we're also listening for really, like, what is the state of this juridical system, the judicial system that we have, the court system. Like, you've already given us some of your impressions about the judge's attitude toward the people and their ignorance, but we want the specifics of what worked or what didn't work with the particular citations that you got. But any general observations you have about the system at large can also be very helpful.
Okay, so thank you. That actually helps me a little bit more. So one of my traffic infractions, while I was still ignorant, this was maybe my third traffic infraction. It was in the city of Everett, and I think all my tickets are with no insurance is one of them, or no license plate or no tabs. But anyways, got an infraction. I lost in the city of Everett municipal court, and then it was my first time paying for an appeal. So I was appealing from the city of Everett municipal court and appealing to the next court up, and the only other court you can go to.
What defense did you offer at the municipal court?
I'm sorry, say it again.
What defense did you offer at the municipal court level?
I would say the same thing as the first ticket, but way more laws. This time I had a 12-page document. I've read quite a bit of cases by then. And I was actually going through statutes at that time and reading court rules. And, at that time I would say partially on track and partially lost. And with going through some of the sovereign citizen arguments, and a portion of them are 100% real, factual. You can find immediately in the, in your state laws and the statutes and the case law and the court rules, federal law, all confirming each other, looking to all these sources.
Basically, you were asserting that you were traveling and you have the right to travel.
Exactly.
Okay, great. And they declined. They ruled against you and you appealed. Yes.
One thing I will say about that case in the municipal court, while I was definitely still a rookie on my third ticket, I was intimidated. I was scared to go to court, scared to assert my rights to the judge. And what was funny is the prosecutor in the room, they wait to do me last because they don't want anyone in the courtroom to hear my arguments. And it's one of their tactics. So that it's used as one tactic for a bad reason for that. They also do it for a good reason because they know that my arguments can be lengthy and they don't want to make other people wait too long. So they do it equally for a good and a bad reason at the same time. The prosecutor is very confident. He's whipping everyone around verbally, talking very tough. And, everyone's yes, sir, no, sir. And he's putting them in their place. And when it came to me, even though I was scared and timid, I could see it in the prosecutor that he was intimidated of me, and which I thought was funny. But he's seen enough laws on the papers. That's the only other reason that could have made him intimidated, is that he's about to engage in a crime. And so that's a piece of information in the room I like to mention to people is notice their demeanor, listen to their tone of voice, their body language. And I couldn't believe how many judges and prosecutors I've had scared. And Whether you believe me or not, it's a true story. And every ticket that I've gotten, like I said, I'm on my 10th. Every ticket, my papers get better and better and better. David Merlin, he chooses to file what's called a motion to dismiss. I file a demand for dismissal. Essentially, they're the same thing, and we'll talk about the little minute differences later. But I send my document titled demand for dismissal, and I articulate the facts in the beginning of my case. I'm Mike Geyer. On this date, at this time, I was stopped by Officer Jones on this street, and this is the cross street. It was daytime. It was this hour, and if the officer was polite and professional, I'll put that in the document. If he was rude and disrespectful, I'll put that in the document, because I want them to see that I'm not a cop hater. I'm not a biased person. There are a lot of people who hate cops, and it's black and white with them. It's not that way with me. I know that a lot of officers are good, and there's a lot of bad ones. And then you have good ones that get sucked into becoming bad because their teammates are corrupt, and they're going to engage in some misconduct. And that one good or two good people in that team, they're basically forced to be in an awkward situation, just to step up and call them out, or to just stay silent and go with their commanding officer or their other coworkers that are the same rank. But I want to jump to the appeal. So I'm in the City of Everett Municipal Court. I lose. The court has to tell me that I have a right to appeal. I have 30 days to appeal. So I get the appeal packet from the clerk's office. Additionally, while I'm at the clerk's office, I pay, I think it's $20 for the audio CD of the audio recording. There's no stenographers in the room. And so the audio recording is, they give it to you on a CD. And from that, you're supposed to hire a professional court reporter or stenographer, a court transcriptionist to transcribe that audio into a transcript. And then that'll be a certified transcript you get to use, whether it's for an appeal or for a lawsuit. But that is key. That is one of the number one things you need to have. That CD is only $20. Some states it's $10. Some states maybe $30, but that is a cheap thing. And that is key for you in your case. And you will likely hear multiple pieces of information that you didn't remember while you're in court, because when you're a newbie, when you're a rookie, you're not just intimidated, but you don't know a lot. There's so many things to learn and know. And as you listen to that audio CD, you'll catch things you didn't know, and you'll be able to see sometimes if they committed perjury. The things they say, some things you can fact check, and some things you can't. But anyways, you want to get that audio CD. Once you get that audio CD, you can transcribe it yourself.
Okay.
You can get your headphones on, listen to it in your computer. You don't have to have a professional do it. Of course, you will look better in the court. You'll be respected more in the court. But if you do it yourself, there's nothing wrong with that. And to put the icing on the cake, to do that for yourself, at the end of your at the end of that court transcript, you want to make it a declaration. To make any document a declaration or an affidavit, they are exactly the same thing. One is just more formal than the other. Affidavit and declaration are the same exact thing. Declaration is supposed to be more formal, but you make all your documents an affidavit or declaration, and by doing that, at the bottom of your paperwork, you write declaration or you write affidavit, and underneath that, you write your name. I, Michael Geyer, certify or affirm that the following statement is true and correct under the laws of Washington State, and I cite the RCW that's for perjury there. And so once you do that, your document is now on the record. And most people go to court and they have no idea about the record. And that brings me to my next point, is whether you call it a little known fact or a secret in the law, most people don't know that, yes, the audio recording is recording in the room. But just because you're being recorded by the audio machine, that doesn't mean you're on the record. You're not on the record. The only way to be on the record is get up, raise your hand and swear in. And then the only other way to get on the record is to put your pleadings on paper. Make your pleadings a declaration.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you're officially on the record. And if you don't do that, if you file an appeal, you file a lawsuit, you're going to appeal obviously to a higher court. The higher court's going to look at the record. And when they look at the record, they're going to see there's nothing on the record as far as your testimony. If they don't see documents signed under penalty of perjury, it's like you weren't there. It's like you didn't say anything. And so that is the number one key point anyone and everyone needs to know. This is all 50 states. It doesn't matter where you are. This is American law, all 50 states. Whether you title it a declaration or title it an affidavit, you need to have that in your paperwork at the end of the paperwork. And
you can say that it's, if you don't have it, it's like you just said, it's as if it didn't happen. But at the same time, if you do have it, it becomes a fact, right?
That's right.
It's considered a fact in the law.
Yes. On that same note, speaking about facts, if you say something that's incorrect or a lie and it's provable, and the prosecutor can rebut it, then you got a problem. So you don't want to lie. It's okay to be silent, but you don't want to lie. And another little tip on that note, when you're writing your documents and when you think you're done and you proofread it, hopefully you can get someone else to proofread it. I usually have to do it myself because I don't have anyone interested in doing it. But after you proofread it and after you're done writing it or think you're done writing it, you don't just want to number the pages. You want to put page 1 of 10, 2 of 10, or whatever. And the reason why is I learned on my first ticket, the prosecutor threw away some of my documents from the record, and I didn't number my pages. And so every time I send documents to the court, it's always numbered page 3 of 32. And my last document was over 30 something pages. And so, number one, after you write your pleadings, you need to make at least 3 copies. You mail one to court or you deliver it to court. You're going to give one to the prosecutor. You need to have one for yourself. And then you need to have a 4th one. The 4th one is called a working copy, and you want to give it to the judge. A lot of times the judges won't play fair, or because it's usually in one of their local rules that they need a working copy. And so that is a big deal. You're going to impress the judge. You're going to make the judge happy by giving them a working copy. So let's say you go to the clerk's office at the courthouse and you get your documents filed, and the clerk stamps it. You want the clerk to not only stamp, you want them to stamp all the copies. You got 4 copies. You got your copy that you're taking home with you. You got the copy that you're going to walk over and bring to the prosecutor or have someone else serve to the prosecutor. And it's going to be stamped by that court. And so it's official that it's in the record. You're filing one with the court, you want that stamped too. And then the 4th one, you might as well get stamped because you're already there. The 4th one is going to be titled working copy. You just write that at the top, you tell it to the clerk, and she will give it to the judge. And that's how that goes. Now we're just going to jump to my latest ticket from January 2021. This is the best document I ever wrote. This is 9 years in the making to make this document. My document is 32 pages. I filed it with the court. Well, first of all, I didn't just file it. I sent it by certified copy mail with return receipt. And so that way the court can't say they didn't get it. They have to sign for it. And after they sign for it, I get that return receipt mailed to me in the mail. And it's done through the US mail.
What document is it?
My demand for dismissal and any other documents that are going to accompany it.
That's the demand for dismissal. Okay.
Yep. It's the same thing as a motion to dismiss. There is a slight difference. I'll talk about that in a minute. But long story short, I filed my demand for dismissal. I sent it by certified copy mail, return receipt. It cost me about $80 because there was a lot of paperwork, and I sent it to the prosecutor's office. The court gave the court a working copy, and then I had my own copy, of course. A lot of this law is hidden, and not everything that I'm going to say you can find online. And if anyone can prove me wrong, feel free to. I'm happy to admit when I'm wrong anytime. I'm not a know-it-all. So I got this ticket January 2021. I mailed my documents by certified copy mail with return receipt to the court, sent it to the prosecutor. I had my copy, gave the court a working copy. I got it in on time, and I realized I still had maybe 2.5 more weeks of time before my court date to get the documents in. And I seen that I missed a few pieces of law that I wanted to get in. So I wrote 5 more pages and I titled it an addendum to demand for dismissal. So it's part of the same document. Additionally, I also sent a document titled Mandatory Parameters of Judicial Immunity. So I let the court know this is where your immunity starts and stops, and you have no immunity in this case. So I'm giving you a polite, fair warning to do the right thing. And I give all credit and thanks to David Merlin. I got that document from him. I went through those cases that are on that document. I ordered all those cases from the law library for free. I read the cases, and I actually found a couple more. And so I added to that document. And but 95% of that document is written by David Merlin, and I'm very grateful for him to give that to me. And so yeah, so I sent in a demand for dismissal, the addendum, and then parameters of judicial immunity. I also subpoenaed the police officer, and he had to appear. With subpoenaing, the judge has the right to a subpoena. The prosecutor has the right to subpoena. If you have a defense attorney, they have a right to subpoena. And you, as one of the people, it's not 100% a right. You're applying to the court for that application. It's basically a right if you follow the guidelines and you do and say everything properly. Then it's pretty much a right. But with everyone else, it's a guaranteed right, because the prosecutor, the judge, or your defense attorney, they are all officers of the court. If you hire an attorney and they're going to represent you in that specific court, they now become an officer of that court. And so, okay, so I get my documents in on time. The court sends me notice of appearance or notice of the hearing. I appear in person. I dress as nice as I can every time. I don't have a full suit. I don't have the jacket, but I'm almost there. And so anyways, that's another tip I give to people. You know, I've had friends go into court and they're wearing a weed shirt, you know, whether you like the judge or not, or think they're corrupt or not, it's important to be respectful. You know, you're playing the long game. You're not playing the short game. And it's important. Your appearance is important. You'll be much more respected. They will take you more serious if you're dressed professional. They don't know who you are. They don't know where you came from. They don't know if your family is a family of lawyers. And so it's always important to dress professional, carry yourself professionally, sit up straight, don't slouch, speak your words, articulate your words clearly, not too slow, not too fast. Multiple times I was so scared in court, I was going way too fast, and I had a court reporter yell at me and say, "Slow down, I can't type that fast." And so, and that was a learning lesson. I'm glad that happened. And so my pleadings after that, or not my pleadings, but my the things I'd articulate out of my mouth in court would be much more professional, not too slow, not too fast. And I'm speaking loud, slowly, and clear. And the other reason why you need to do that, like I said, is that that court reporter. I've gotten transcripts before, and the transcriptionist butchered the words because she didn't know exactly what I said. And so anyways, that's another tip that you need to take, everyone needs to take into consideration, because you're playing the long game. You need to always expect, in my opinion, you need to always expect to lose in the district court, and you need to be okay with that. To me, if you want to win, you need to have the mindset to file an appeal or file a lawsuit. And yes, most of us don't know how to file lawsuits. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of reading, a lot of research, and a lot of court rules to read. So anyways, you want to have the mindset to play the long game. And if your pleadings are on point and you articulate the law and your rights, then you won the court. Even though the judge says, no, you didn't, and they ruled against you. They say the best way to win an appeal is win at trial. So I'm not trying to sound cocky or silly, but I've won every single case I've ever had. And every single case the judge said, no, you didn't. And so it took me this many years to figure out how to get to the Supreme Court. And and I'm currently in the Supreme Court right now. I thought my case was just dismissed because they sent me a letter dismissing it. And then I just got another letter from this court today saying that this dismissal that I got it was just from the court commissioner. The justices themselves did not look at my case and discuss it themselves. Normally, the justices themselves look at the cases and decide which case they're going to take or not take. A portion of those cases, they have no choice. A portion of those cases they have to take. For instance, a death penalty case. You win at trial with your pleadings. You do need to read the court rules. You do need to read some statutes. A lot of people in the sovereign citizen movement, which I don't personally associate myself with that movement. I don't call myself a sovereign citizen. Even though a large portion of those arguments are real, you're going to look silly if you can't prove why they're real. So it's one thing to say, you know, an argument in law, a sovereign citizen argument, but it's another thing to say it and show some case law and then show a statute. You know, the court, it's hard to lose, and it's hard to lose when you please the court with both statutory law and case law. Almost everyone in the sovereign citizen movement only cites case law. And yes, case law is great. You need it, you want it. And in truth, in America, in the 50 states, case law trumps statutory law. The only state that I believe that's not true is the state of Louisiana, because they're running off partial Napoleonic code or something. The country of France has
Roman law.
Yes. So they basically have a large dominance in the courts, but they still can't violate the Constitution. So anyways, it's a state I don't know too much about, but the other states are much easier to deal with. So back to the appeal process, not just the appeal, but from the start to finish. You need to expect that the judge is going to rule against you. Some of them are ignorant and others are corrupt. And so you need to have that in your mind. You're going to lose for one of those reasons. And then you have the prosecutor who's likely been doing business with that judge for many years, and they likely even went to school together. Almost all of these people know each other very well. A large portion of them did go to school together. And this amount of years that I've been studying law and fighting the courts, I've seen it firsthand so many times in so many different ways. You can look up these lawyers. When they sign their documents, they almost always put their bar number, and they're supposed to. And I take that bar number and I go to the Washington State Bar Association.org, and I can look up every bar member and get a good amount of personal information about them, what school they graduated, some of their background, when were they admitted to the Bar Association, have they been disciplined, quite a bit of information. And this will be key for you when you are moving along through your appeal process. But I'm not trying to be redundant, but I know I'm getting off task a little bit. So like I said, you want to play the long game. You get all your documents in to the district court or the city municipal court, because when you get a ticket, you're going to go to one of those two courts. If you're in the county, you're going to go to the county court. If you're within the city limits, you're going to go to the city municipal court. If you're in the county district court, when you pay for an appeal, the first appeal will be the next court up, which is the Superior Court. And or if you're coming from the city of Everett or a city municipal court, the next court above that will still be the county the county Superior Court. So let's say you get all your paperwork in, you know you got all the law you want and need on the paperwork. After you lose, you immediately go to the clerk's office. You pay for the audio CD. You'll likely have to wait a couple days to a week before they produce it for you. They have a records officer who already has all kinds of work to do, and rarely and sometimes they can get it for you there then that day. But like I said, that audio CD is key. And if you have the money, if you're very wealthy, why not hire a transcriber to go in the courtroom with you? That would just be better. The more people you can bring, the better. If some of these people are your friends and they dress hood, they dress, like they're from the streets, don't bring them. Or if you do bring them, let them not sit with you so the court doesn't know who they are. The purpose of having these people here with you is mainly for a witness, for the future. So when you file a lawsuit or an appeal or a criminal complaint, you have a human being, a witness that can, articulate on paper and sign under penalty of perjury that the judge committed this felony at this time. The judge committed this misdemeanor at this point in time. The judge committed perjury here. The judge played stupid there. The prosecutor did the same thing. They do and they will collude, and they rely on your ignorance, and they've done it to me countless times. And I'm not trying to brag, but they've been very surprised about the laws that I knew before I went in there. And I blatantly had this judge from Snohomish County District Court. She committed perjury 4 times in the case. In the very beginning of the case, and that's a Class B felony, and that's punishable up to 5 years in prison in Washington State. And so she calls my name. I come up to the stand and I say, Your Honor, before I say one word, is my wish to swear in before I say anything in this court. And then she immediately lies, plays stupid, and thinks she's going to trick me. And 99% of people, in my opinion, will be tricked by this. And it's what I said earlier about getting on the record. And I said, it's my wish to testify in this court before I say one word. And the judge says, oh, well, you're already on the record because the audio recording is turned on and all the other previous folks are on the record. So you can just go ahead and go. And I said, Your Honor, I'm very aware that you're recording, but not everyone in this room is on the record. And because these people didn't swear, I named the people who didn't swear in. And then she got embarrassed and said, oh, okay. And so I caught her right there, and she's seen that I caught her. So then she let me swear in. And then from that point, I was on the record. So that should be always pretty much the first thing out of your mouth after, good morning, good afternoon, Your Honor, hello, Your Honor. And it's okay to call him Your Honor. I recommend that you do. People in the sovereign citizen movement say that you shouldn't because they say that it admits the court's jurisdiction. No, it doesn't. If you can show me any case law or statute that proves me wrong, feel free, but it doesn't exist. And if it does, I will humbly come back and admit I'm wrong anytime, anywhere. But I recommend you always say, Your Honor, yes, sir, no, sir. Be polite and professional. So anyways, this case that I got in Snohomish County, this is my most recent case. And, I got my demand for dismissal. It's 32 pages. And then I got my addendum in, that's 5 pages. And then I got a 6-page document titled Mandatory Judicial Notice, Parameters of Judicial Immunity. And then I subpoenaed the officer. The officer comes to court. I have a large list of questions to question him on. I start with his training. What did he learn? And how long is the academy? It's roughly 2 years. Of the 2 years, how much is classroom work? How much is on the street? How much is driving techniques? And we go through all of that. And then I ask him about constitutional law. Of the portion of time in the classroom, how much of that was spent on constitutional law alone? It's always very little. And I ask him, have you been taught about the right to travel? And most states, to the best of my knowledge, all 50 states, I could be wrong, but I believe all 50 states use the phrase public vehicular travel. And I got this phrase first from David Merlin. And after talking to him and watching his YouTube video on it, I've seen a lot of statutes in Washington State that use that. And so the right to travel is very well written into Washington State law and federal law. It's actually a very beautiful thing here. It's if anyone's in Washington State, you are the person I can help the most. If you're in another state, I can help you still. The main thing I can help you with first is your federal law. I have all the federal law you'll need, proving you have the right to travel. without you looking at your state law. Your federal law trumps your state law on constitutional issues. Federal law does not trump all state law. Federal law trumps state law in certain areas, specifically constitutional law. So back to my story from this Snohomish County District Court. I got my documents in. The judge committed perjury multiple times, committed crimes. I left the court. Well, after she's done and I'm done arguing with her, I politely tell her that you just violated my right to travel and my right to due process, and I want that on the record. And so I get that on the record, and then I leave. I go to the clerk's office immediately, pay for the audio CD. While I'm there, I also do public disclosure request, or I'm sorry, public records request for certain documents and names of personnel. Sometimes the prosecutor has 2 or 3 people at their table with them. I want to know who each and every one of them are. And they are witnesses, and they are a part of the conspiracy against my rights. And so they're going to be named in the complaint, and they'll be named in my my appeal. I like to do appeals first. I'm very good with appeals. I don't know too much about lawsuits. I'm actually working on one right now. But I'm doing it slowly because I'm still in this. I'm still in my appeal process. So long story short, I lose. I get the audio CD. I go home. I listen to the audio CD. I got pad of paper and pen in front of me. I got my computer notepad on. I'm taking down. First, I'm doing notes before I start transcribing. I want. What day did I get my notice to appear? What day did I get my ticket? What day did I get my notice to appear? What time does court start? What time was I actually called in court? Court starts at 10, but they don't call me till last. And so I don't start till like 11:30. I put down every vivid detail that happened and that's relevant to the case. And so anyways, I lose. And then I have 30 days to file my appeal to the next court up, which is the Superior Court. And I write my appellate brief. I give it to the prosecutor, give it to the court. I give the court a working copy. And, I get a court date roughly 3 months out. And then when it's time to appear in court, the judge gives you 10 minutes to talk and gives the prosecutor 10 minutes to talk. This specific time in this case, after 10 tickets, I finally beat the prosecutor. I have it in writing in 2 separate letters. This demand for dismissal that I have is what I'm going to offer to sell. This is 9 years in the making to make this document that I beat the prosecutor, and I'm planning on selling it for $100. And but anyways, like I said, I beat the prosecutor. I have it in writing in 2 separate letters, and I go into court, and I'm feeling good. I know it's still a 50-50. The judge could be corrupt. I'm on my best behavior as always. And usually within 5 minutes or so, I see where it's going. The judge rules against me. He uses basically the same case that 99% of all the courts use around the US. Reitz versus Mealy. It might actually be pronounced as Rights versus Mealy. But it doesn't matter, the pronunciation. Anyways, he cites that case as a US Supreme Court case. And then he cites a Washington State Appellate Court case. The appellate court case, let's not worry about at the moment, because that's just an appellate court in Washington State. That's way, way below the US Supreme Court ruling. So anyways, this judge cites a US Supreme Court case, and normally that would be game over for me or game over for anyone else. But the thing is, this Supreme Court case that the judge cited was overturned in part. And the part that was overturned was the specific reasoning that the judge used to rule against me. So I was sitting in a very, very beautiful position. I knew I won in the district court, even though the judge ruled against me. I appealed, and I lost there, but I knew I won, number 1, because I know the law. Number 2, I beat the prosecutor, and I have it in writing in 2 separate letters. Number 3, the case, like I said, was overturned in part, and this couldn't be more beautiful. The part that was overturned was the reasoning used to overrule me. So then the next step in the ladder in Washington State most courts are the same, but there's a few courts where they structure the courts a little bit differently. So I'm just talking about Washington State, but just keep in mind, most states are going to be almost exactly the same in this fashion. So you got the district court, then you got the Superior Court, and then above that, you got the Washington State Court of Appeals. And then above that, you have the Washington State Supreme Court, which is the highest state court. Okay, so after I lost in the Superior Court, I had the choice to go to the Washington State Court of Appeals or go to the Washington State Supreme Court. I have the choice. I can skip the Court of Appeals. I personally decided to skip the Court of Appeals for two separate reasons. One, the Court of Appeals in 1986 ruled against a woman named Julie Port. And it's a famous case, not just in Washington State, but around the country, where they denied the right to travel and they called it a privilege. So I said to myself, yes, that was, 35, 36 years ago. The court could have changed by then, but I'm still going to deem them to be a little bit corrupt and I don't want to deal with them. I have the choice to go to the Supreme Court. So that's where I'm going to go. I would rather have precedent from a state Supreme Court, because if I win, the case will be more respected and it'll be the law for the whole state. The other reason why I specifically chose to go directly to the Supreme Court and not the Court of Appeals is strategy. And the strategy is, if you appeal to the Supreme Court can do one of three things. One, they can take your case. Two, they can deny your case. And number three, they can say, your case is going to be heard, but we're too busy. So we're going to force the Court of Appeals to hear it. So I knew that my chances are much higher of success by just jumping straight up to the Supreme Court. And that's why I did that. Fast forward to February 1st, a week ago, that was the date that the Supreme Court decided if they will take my case or not take my case. I got a letter, not in the mail because we're doing online court portals. And the Supreme Court declined to take my case. And it was actually not the Supreme Court themselves, not the justices themselves. It was a court commissioner. I was very angry about that. I thought it was corruption. I was thinking, how does this commissioner have the authority to do what he did? The way he wrote me, the way he addressed me made it clear that the Supreme Court didn't even get to look at it yet. And so I'm thinking, wow, I'm dealing with corruption again, all the way from the district court. It's followed me to the Supreme Court, to this commissioner. And I look up this commissioner, do some research on him. And I see that, he's a lawyer. He's been in the game many years. And he used to be a substitute judge, which is called a pro tem. Pro tem is short for pro tempore, which is a legal Latin phrase, which just means for the time being. Pro temp just means a substitute judge. So as a substitute judge, 99.9% chance he was in district courts and superior courts and even municipal courts. And majority of those cases are traffic matters. And he's likely heard this argument many times. And so anyways, today I wrote a letter addressing the court. I got it in about 4:00 and saying, I feel like this is improper, that my case was dismissed for these reasons. And I told them, there's no corruption, and I'm not upset that the court dismissed my case. There's no problem with that. There's nothing wrong with that. What the problem is the choice of words by the commissioner and why he chose to dismiss my case. And he was very biased with his choice of words. And so I knew that corruption made its way to the court, to this commissioner. And this commissioner has been in the game a long time. I guarantee you he knows a lot of these judges and prosecutors, and even some of the ones that they don't know. These people are all connected through the Bar Association, the Washington State Bar Association, and then you have your county bar associations. These associations are used for mainly only for networking, communication, and for privately communicating and dealing with clients and pro se litigants. So anyways, I get this letter back from the court today, and I find out that the commissioner did have the right to go through my case and to dismiss it. So I learned, okay, that part was not corrupt. Okay. I learned that, and they corrected me today. They showed me the court rules. Great. But he still played corruption because his choice of words what he chose to say specifically in this letter from the Supreme Court, from him, he's a commissioner of the Washington State Supreme Court. And in short, he says my case is frivolous. I have no merit. And he says that I cannot cite one case that is contrary to the Superior Court's decision. And so I wrote them this letter today, 3-page letter saying, I'm very polite, very professional, and saying, these statements made by this commissioner, these draw a red flag to me immediately, because either this guy is grossly incompetent or just really lazy and didn't really read through the arguments, or he's corrupt and playing ball with the lower courts. And he has to be corrupt and playing ball, because I'm just saying I know he is, based on his choice of words. And I'm giving you the short version of how he says, these are the reasons to get to the Supreme Court and to be heard. And he's saying I don't have one reason, but there's 4 reasons to be heard, and I fall into all 4 categories. No mistaking, no joking, no lying. And so, I articulated this on paper today to the court. Roughly around 5 o'clock, I checked my email and I got a letter back from the head clerk, and they said that he does have permission under these court rules to look at the case and to deny it. But the good news is I have 30 days from that date to file a motion to have the Supreme Court hear it myself. So while I thought it was game over this past week, I was trying one more thing to get in, and I pleaded to them with this letter I sent them today, and saying, hey, I want the head clerk to read this, and I want the 9 justices to read this. I actually emailed it to the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court today as well. And so that letter was just such a blessing today. I'm back in the game still. And so if I outright lost, I still have multiple options. One, I can file a lawsuit in the state court within 4 different counties, which means 4 different courts. So that's some good options. In reality, to me, it's not a good option, because the court is so corrupt, it's not likely to happen, winning my lawsuit in the state courts. So the next option is filing a lawsuit in the federal court, which would be the U.S. District Court in Seattle. For me, it would be the Western Division. In Washington State, we have 2 divisions. Our state's not too big, and so we have 2 separate divisions dividing up the state. California is very large, so they have multiple divisions. If you go to your federal court's website, they will be able to tell you which division you would be filing your lawsuit in, based on your county.
Well, all right. What do you think, Michael, if you're open to having questions? And then we also want to hear about, what other people might be doing in this last month. But you're a real champion. And this is the kind of attitude that I just admire so much. And I hope that everyone, listens up to the details of what you're saying and learns strategy options and suggestions from your real life experience. But I also want people to get your attitude, the don't stop, don't quit attitude that you clearly have. As long as you don't quit, there's still a way to win. And so I appreciate your creativity. I appreciate your commitment. And there's no quitting until you win. And maybe also want to say that something you told me earlier, that you're looking for not to win on a technicality. You really are here to have us win as a people. You kind of, mentioned a little bit in terms of how you want the Supreme Court to rule so that everyone in the state of Washington
That's right.
wins.
I'm not going to settle out of court. I honestly expected by now to be approached by the county risk manager or the state risk manager, and have them try to settle with me out of court. I tried to get them to pay me years ago, and they have my criminal complaints. And long story short, the person running the risk management, which is the division of the state or county, which will pay you out of court, so you don't have to go to court if they see that that the county clearly did something wrong. This was a 30-something page criminal complaint that I wrote for 2 judges, And then, and I wrote some other complaints for other judges at that same time. But long story short, picture reading 32 pages, not being a lawyer, and the head of the risk manager is not a lawyer, head of risk management, I mean. And then this 32 something page document is riddled with cases every 3, 4, or 5 sentences and statutes. So that means that's a lot of statutes you have to stop and read. Some of them are in plain English and nice and short and easy to read. Some of them are pages long with multiple exceptions and riddled with legalese. So it is not an easy thing to do if you're not a lawyer. And then being able to construe a statute. It's called statutory construction, also called judicial construction. And I'm actually very good at that. David Merlin is a master. He's great at that. And so, but yeah, I'll let you go ahead.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I just want to thank you again for your attitude, of your champion winner attitude. We all could use a big dose of that. Thanks for being the kind of person it takes to go into the weeds of it, to put yourself forward and to be a fighter for us. We would all be better off if we were like you. So yeah, questions, folks. Go ahead and raise your hand if you have a question for Michael about his approach, about his stories. Michael, maybe if there's any documents like the one you just sent today, for example, you'd like to share with us. I know you have a lot of documents. I'm not going to ask you to share, everything, obviously, but maybe just one document that just demonstrates, your spirit and some of your talent as well, just so folks can get a taste of that. But David Rodriguez here, he's been to the court and he's driven without a license plate, and he's been cited for it, haven't you, David?
Yeah, Michael, thank you for putting all the work. I was really admiring that you said it took 9 years to make that document, and I think there was a bunch of different storylines that I was trying to follow along because there's so much content that you're delivering. But I think you're right on about having like a small charge and then taking it to the higher levels. Some of the people know that I had like multiple charges, and then like they give a resisting arrest or obstruction of justice, and all of a sudden now you have infractions, and then you start having misdemeanors, and ended up throwing some felonies at me as well. And I was like, holy cow. So thank you for that. And then you talk about the district court, just expect losing on district court, and then to go to appeal to the Superior Court and the appeals process. I've not done the appeals process yet. That was educational, and looking forward to that. My question is, so when you're talking about the risk management, so when you're filing your complaint, is this a civil suit that you're the plaintiff on, or a criminal suit, or how is it that the risk management is involved? Because my experience is that when I was on the defense, I was on a criminal defense and I was defending myself. And then now I've actually filed my first federal lawsuit. And so now I'm on offense. It's a very different position. So yeah, so much for research and learning. But so when you're involving let's say the criminal complaint that you said, is that a civil complaint, or are you going after them for money, or how is because I got confused about the criminal traffic infraction that they gave you versus the complaint that you filed. So was that the same case, or is that different cases there, or how does that dance together?
Well, for every case, I have written criminal complaints. Some of them are still not finished because I have 10 tickets. But yeah, most of the infractions were civil infractions, which means I'm not being charged with a crime, meaning I'm not looking at any jail time. And so, but jumping to one of the instances where this judge committed multiple felonies in my court case, the most obvious felonies were the perjury. You don't have to know anything about the law to see that this woman committed perjury when I present a certified transcript signed under penalty of perjury. And I say, hey, at 8:57, the judge said this. And then I said this, and then she said this. Now look at the transcript, page 4, line 9. So anyone could see some of these felonies. Of course, the right to travel is a fairy tale to most officials. And so articulating that, you know, I spent a long time writing and explaining that and dumbing it down for someone who knows nothing about the law for these officials. And so there is a complete difference between the civil and the criminal. The criminal complaint I gave to all the heads of the state and heads of the county sheriff, the county risk manager, the county auditor, county treasurer. And these complaints, one, I'm trying to make the state aware of what's going on and that we have these rights. Two, yes, I was trying to get the county to pay and settle me out of court, but I've changed my mind, and I'm not going to do that anymore, because if I just settle out of court, then that just means only I win. But if I win this case, not only do I win, everyone in the state wins, and it'll be recognized. It'll be immediately law of the land in Washington state, in all the counties, all the cities. And first of all, it already is the law of the land in our state. It's already written. We have these laws from since 1915 to present day that have never changed. So it's just the fact of getting these officials to recognize this is the law. I'm just pointing it out numerous times. So the lawsuit is completely separate from the criminal. A lawsuit is always civil, and you're suing for monetary damages. Sometimes you could be suing for something else. Maybe the news tainted your name and you're just suing to have that news agency go back on air and say the truth about your name so they don't assassinate your character. But as far as the criminal complaints, normally in all 50 states, the people, me and you, we can't file criminal charges, but we can file criminal complaints. What that means is, as one of the citizens, you can see a criminal act, and then you can document it and write it down and give it to your sheriff, give it to your prosecutor, give it to whoever. But in Washington state specifically, we have special court rules that allows for the citizen to write criminal complaints and give it directly to the judge and let the judge institute this proceedings. There's really no such thing as the citizens filing a criminal lawsuit. If you're filing a lawsuit, it's always civil. But yes, you can document crimes and entitle it criminal complaint or citizens criminal complaint. And obviously at the bottom of it, you need to make that a declaration. Otherwise, it means nothing. And specifically in our state, we are special because we have these court rules that allows for the citizens to write these criminal complaints. And we have the choice to give it to the prosecuting attorney and let the prosecutor hopefully file charges against another official, which is very unlikely. And then have the other choice of filing that criminal complaint directly with the court. It's very special. I hope that clears up the question. A lot of people get them confused, and I was confused for years, wondering, am I doing a criminal lawsuit and then a civil lawsuit? Or am I doing them both together? No, you only file a civil lawsuit for money. And your criminal complaints in Washington state, like I said, you can give it to the prosecutor and hope the prosecutor files the charges. The prosecutor represents the government, and so the prosecutor is always the one to proceed with criminal charges. I did not proceed with criminal charges. I just wrote a criminal complaint, and I gave them to all the heads of the authority, and almost everyone in the state just puts their head in the sand. And the few people that recognize my criminal complaints as valid, they're like, I have no authority. I can't do anything. And so, but I'm still going.
Very good. All right. Thank you for that clarification.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Let's hear from Carol.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, Carol.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Clint and David, for hosting. I appreciate this. So yeah, my question is about traffic court. So I listened to the call last month, and David Merlin spoke about his methodology, and I purchased that, and I'm in the process of going through that. So I'm in California, and it's actually my son, Alexander, that has the traffic ticket. It's a speeding ticket. He got it when he was 17, but now he's 18. So my question is, and our traffic court date is a week from Friday, so it's coming up. And I think my strategy was going to be to use, the motion to dismiss that David Merlin had created. I guess my hesitation is it mostly cites Washington law, and I'm in California. So I'm just a little hesitant, I guess, that it's not going to carry as much weight as I'd hoped.
First,
Yeah. So, I guess what would you recommend? And or any tips or strategies going into court? Because the other the one of the challenges I have is I'm learning all this stuff. My son is not as motivated, so I'm going to have to kind of cue him and give him tips and things like that. But I'm not sure that it's a commissioner actually that runs the traffic court, and I
yep.
don't even think there's a prosecutor that appears, honestly, from what I understand. I think it's just her that's there, which I think is a huge conflict of interest in itself for the judge to be both the prosecutor and the quote unquote judge.
Oh yeah.
Um, so anyway, any tips or recommendations, because our court date is next week?
Yes. Okay. So first thing is that document you got from David Merlin has both federal law and state law. You want to emphasize the federal law. And then when it comes to the Washington state law, you're going to call it persuasive law. You're going to say, hey, look at this other jurisdiction, look at this other state. And you can say, whether you can say you used to live there, or say that you used to study, some Washington state law if you want to, but you're going to call it persuasive law. And that persuasive law is called secondary authorities. That federal law will be primary authorities. And if you have any California state law, that'll be primary authorities as well. If you go to my website, righttotravel.com, I have a federal laws page, and you can almost copy and paste the whole thing from the top to the bottom, and to emphasize that. But I'm sure David Merlin did a great job articulating the federal laws. And so, truth be told, you likely have a lot of work to do, and that work is going through however many pages of that document you bought from David, and you want to change some words around, you want to move some things around. All that law can stay, but the organization needs to change a little bit. The federal law is what you need to focus on if you don't have any California state law. And then after you cite that federal law, say as a secondary authority or persuasive authority, I would like to direct the court's attention to Washington state. Look how the right to travel is ingrained into their state law. The U.S. Supreme Court says that we have a right to travel. Clearly, this is constitutional law applicable in all 50 states, as well as California. And so, in a nutshell, that's what you need to do. If you have the time, you really should be reading the court rules. Long story short, let's say you lose, and with all due respect, you likely will. You will have 30 days to file an appeal. There's a slight chance that court could say 20 days to file an appeal. That's why it's important for you to read those court rules. Most people in the sovereign citizen movement, they think only case law applies. You need to read the, if you can't find any state statutes, at least read the court rules, and you will impress the judge. And it's important to cite some of those court rules, and some of them you don't cite. You just see, oh, okay, I got 30 days to file this appeal, and I get it in on time,
Okay. To have your document, I think, would be a good investment, because I think we're all going to need it.
Yeah. Once you learn this, the truth is you're not subject to traffic infractions for the rest of your life. It is life-changing information.
Yeah.
But unless you can articulate it out of your mouth and on paper, it means nothing almost. And another secret you need to know, everyone needs to know, is the judge can cut you off at any time they want. They don't have to let you talk. And there's a 99.9% chance that they will not let you say everything that you need to say, because there's a lot on this topic. So how do you get the judge to hear everything you need to say? You put it in your pleadings, in your paperwork.
Hey, Carol, well, can I ask you, how did you find that vehicular travel and traffic court package of David Merlin's? You finding it useful?
Well, I haven't really completed the whole process of listening. So, and a lot of it is, similar to what he talked about last month. So it just goes into more detail and going into all of the documents.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that I keep going back and forth on is just, whether or not to join his RICO complaint, because that's a big question in my world. I mean, and technically it's really my son's because he's 18 now. He's an adult, so it's really a question for him. And I don't really feel like he is educated enough to make a decision on whether to join that RICO complaint or not. So that's another kind of hesitation I had with that. So,
Okey-doke.
but yeah, it's good information.
All right. Well, thanks for being here again, Carol. It's always wonderful to see your name on the screen and to be reminded too that you're coaching your son and educating him. That's the kind of moms we need in this world.
Yeah, thank you.
I say it again and again, but it's really it's inspiring to me for generational education. Yes.
May I say something for a second?
Sure. Go ahead.
I want to stress that I've seen so many YouTube videos on California officials, the politicians, the judges, the prosecutors, and the police officers, and it is an extremely dangerous state. These are very crazy, egotistical officers and judges and prosecutors. It is, I think California is ranked number 1 or number 3 most corrupt state. I don't remember who's the company that did this rating system, but anyways, if your son's going to go in this fight, you need to be prepared for retaliation, harassment, for them to play games, play stupid. He needs to dress professional. He needs to not get emotional. He needs to not raise his voice to the judge. And this is one of the reasons why I've had a lot of success. A lot of things that I've done, people have been put in prison or beaten severely or put in prison or even killed doing what I'm doing. Not just articulating your rights, but writing criminal complaints for judges and prosecutors. I'm not exaggerating on that at all. If he's going to appear in court, you need to show up with him and secretly record with your cell phone, whether it's just the audio or you can secretly use the camera if you can, but you don't want the court to know you're recording, and it's there for your protection. The courts will oftentimes manipulate that audio CD. So you need, it's only happened to me once, but you need to be ready for these games. And the only way to have a verbatim conversation is you recording it or hiring a stenographer to go in that room with you, or both.
Wow. Yes, let's not kid ourselves. What's at stake here is enormous. The billions of dollars that they rake in every year.
That's right.
It's obviously fraud. We know that. When I say they, certainly certain judges and lawyers at a certain level and legislators know the truth of our rights and don't want us to find that out. And they certainly don't want a court establishing precedents. It's going to take us pushing through our fear and playing the game very wisely. So thanks for those additional comments, Michael. Yes. Connie's with us again. Connie, how is your right to travel going these days?
I'm traveling.
Yes.
Yes, I think Michael is heroic. What a heroic dude you are. I am in Washington State as well. And Michael, I see half of what I used to see on the road as far as the police thugs. Sorry, I've had run-ins. I'll call them thugs. They always say, there's the good cops. Oh yeah? I've yet to see one. And I like to use humor. Michael, I just wanted to address that. I think all the hours he's put in on all the paperwork and so forth is just stunning. And I hope it happens for Washingtonians, but then we'll have to convince the people that they can actually drive, as they need to, and travel as they need to, without all the paraphernalia and the money that has been spent before. So that's going to be a convincing job. I have a DOT on my plate. I have one plate, and I just thought, how easier would it be to have a DOT number? And they can look me up. I haven't been stopped much at all in the last year or two because I've seen just an absence of police. And so that is simple. Maybe it's a cowardly way to go, but it sure as heck doesn't make me have to file things and go into these kangaroo courts and have to deal with all this because I have my DOT and I rarely do any harm. I was stopped in Montana a few months back and given a sobriety test or something because I was holding up traffic or some nonsense. And that was ridiculous. But he didn't seem to mind that I had a DOT, and he looked it up and said, okay. And he did his little finger thing, where you follow the finger. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's my experience, is that the DOT is a heck of a lot easier to get, because I have a business. I teach the theater for children, and I haven't in 3 years because I don't vax or mask or anything. So they use that for the DOT, and yet if you have an EIN, which I have because I'm a secured party and American National and all that stuff, they will use that to do the DOT, and you're just non-commercial. You're not selling anything out of your car. So that's my solution, Michael, is to do that. You've done all the hard legwork and all the putting up with these buffoons, all these buffoons in Washington. So I really commend him. And yet, I just want to mention the DOT's been easier for me nationwide.
I actually don't know what you mean when you say DOT. I understand it stands for the Department of Transportation, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
so what do you mean you have a DOT?
Well, it identifies me. If I harm someone or harm property, certainly they will look that number up and they'll see me. I also have a disabled placard because I have a little disability, and they can identify me that way. But I do not have a regular plate from the DMV and so forth.
Oh,
So the Department of Transportation number is what I got.
Is that the state Department of Transportation or the federal Department of Transportation, Connie?
It's the state.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And yet it's good all over the United States, because the guy in Montana didn't seem to mind. He just wanted to do the finger thing at me and put me out in the middle of traffic where I almost died. Cars were 6 inches away.
oh wow.
So anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out to people, that it's easier than Michael has done a whole lot of work, and I think it's amazing to me. So just throwing it out as a suggestion.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Connie. Hope to see you again.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm a little late coming in. Thank you.
Aubra's got a question or a comment. Thank you again, Aubra, for connecting me and Michael. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you. So, for Connie, so I'm in Washington State. Is it possible for us to hook up and so I can learn about what you're doing, because I'm trying to secure my freedom and protect myself against the thugs that I've had some run-ins with. And one of the thing was, Mike, tell them about how you go up to the counter and tell them that the judge has to turn her in for crimes.
So I wrote these criminal complaints, gave them to all the heads of the county, and then I figured it'd be smart to let all the clerks and the head clerks of that court know that the judges they're working for are felons. I gave them copies of the criminal complaints. I dressed professional, talked to them very professionally. I went through some of it with them there, and I asked them to gather up a few other clerks, and they all kind of gathered around at the window. And I let them know that I'm publicly calling for Judge Bowie to step down and turn herself in to the sheriff's office. And they actually said that they know. And I was calling in every couple of weeks, seeing if she was going to step down, and checking back with the sheriff's office. And long story short, the sheriff said he can't arrest her, in his opinion, because he claims he doesn't have jurisdiction, because he claims it's a conflict of interest, because he arrests people in that county and he brings them to that judge. And so anyways, there's still other options, but long story short, yeah, I guess it was kind of funny. But
it just cracked me up when you told me about that. So Judge Bowie's the one that I was dealing with for the last 2.5 years. She's a real piece of work.
Oh yeah.
So it amused me when you told me that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Aubra, I want to hear more from you. Your story is really informative too.
Oh yeah, I still haven't heard from those crooks. I think it'll be 10 weeks this Wednesday that I did not attend 2 of their scheduled hearings, and yeah, I haven't heard from them. There's nothing on the record saying I have a case coming. They still have the case on the record, but under status it says it's blank. So, but yeah, I mean, I did a bunch of stuff. I met Mike when I was petering out and was like just totally tired of dealing with the whole thing, and so I
And
did.
then
a
you went
process.
Mike and he reinvigorated you, right?
Well, I did David Merlin's process the day before they were supposed to have a trial on me, and the next morning I filed the documents on the case, and I did the joinder, the federal joinder, and I filed the federal joinder and the proof that I mailed it and all that stuff, plus the motion to dismiss and all the there's two other documents. Okay, it's not, I didn't know I was going to be talking about this. Yeah, I think it was a memorandum and then something else. And yeah, and the next morning there was no court, no trial, it was canceled. And I didn't go back after that. But I also did file identity theft and tax fraud with the IRS for them, all of them. So hopefully they're still dealing with that.
Wow. And also, Aubrey, correct me if I misunderstood, but didn't you also say that you found a link between your case and financial instrument on the stock exchange? Am I?
Oh yeah. So, well, I got all the CUSIP reports. So the ticket, when I got pulled over, they had a Washington State Patrol and they had a sheriff's deputy there. And so there's two tickets with two different numbers. And so there's a CUSIP report for both of those accounts. And then I refused to do the breathalyzer. So they got a court warrant warrant for the blood. And so there's a CUSIP report for that. And there was a CUSIP report for another number having to do with it, which I can't remember exactly what that one was. And then they had two cases. They had the case under my current name, which was on my driver's license, which they immediately canceled within 3 days. They didn't file charges. So that one went away. And then they opened up a new case 6 months later. So I had 6 CUSIP reports that I paid $125 a piece from a broker to get. And so I took the lone wolf identity theft and W-4 class. So there's 4 different documents that get sent to different places in the IRS. And then there's the W-4 gets sent to the Treasury for them to balance out the records, to balance out the public and private, because they're making those bonds in the public and they're adding to the public debt with those bonds. And then they're taking the money and not paying the taxes on it. So that's where the fraud happens. So 2 of the documents went to 2 different places, notifying them that they're considering themselves to be, what's that called when they don't have to pay taxes? I keep trying to say evasion, but that's not the word. But then one of them was to the identity theft department, and then one of them was to the whistleblowers. And in the whistleblowers department, you actually hear back from them. Actually, I heard back from them and identity theft, but I didn't hear back from the 2 tax ones. And I've talked to the whistleblower people like 4 times now to make sure that they got all my documents, because I've sent 3 different packets to them and they're very nice. And they told me they got everything and the case is still open. Some people I know that have done this have gotten certified letters from the whistleblower department telling them they're not taking the case. They'll only take something if it's over $2 million. And I keep getting letters telling me that the case is still open. So he told me that there's somebody's assigned to my case and working it. So that's encouraging. And I also paid for the case like about 20 times. I don't know, maybe not quite that many, but it was a lot. And they did not discharge the case. They did not send the instruments back. So they held them. They broke the law there. They held them and they didn't give me my discharge and immunity that I was owed and due. And so I, let the whistleblower place know about that too. I didn't send them all the instruments, but we're organizing them. And I told the guy on the phone the last time I talked to him, I just said this was a 2.5-year ordeal. There was a lot of documents and instruments filed, and I'm getting the instruments together for you. I'm assuming that they've already subpoenaed however they do it, the records from the court, and have all that stuff. But I figure if they didn't turn all of the instruments in, then when I turn them in, then they can look and see if they actually got them all from them. So, but I don't know, because they won't tell you any details, right? So that was encouraging though, that they still have my case open, and they've had all these documents since September 28th.
Oh.
Yeah, so. And they have incentive too. These IRS agents have incentive to work these cases because they get a 13% cut of whatever they claw back. And then when you do the whistleblower one, you get a 3% cut of it also. But when you do the whistleblower, the first thing that they send you is a letter telling you, I don't have it handy, and if you wanted, I could dig one up really quick. But there's a document that you can go look up online, and it shows how it works when you do the whistleblower, and it's one of those flow charts where it starts here and then it goes here and then it goes there and it goes here and it goes all the way down, and by the time you get to the bottom of this 2 or 3 page flow chart, it says it'll probably take 5 or 6 or more years before you get paid, because that's assuming that they're going to fight it in court. But the court might not go that way. They might just pay it. I don't know, but a lot of people are doing these now. So we'll see. I'll keep you posted.
Well, yeah, I'm thinking we need to do a full presentation. If you want to take the time to help people, we can either at our next monthly gathering, and everyone go ahead and put in your calendar the first Tuesday of March. All right, thanks. I see Kat has her hand up. If anyone else has any more questions, or you want to tell us about what you're doing to fight against the vehicle code, what you're doing to get yourself free and the rest of us at the same time get ourselves free from the tyranny, the pirates on the road, please raise your hand. We want to hear from everybody today. Go ahead, Kat.
Hi. I just had a question. Maybe some people could answer, but I'm just wondering. I know I've came to this thing every month, and I've told you guys my experience, but some people weren't here, so I don't know if you want me to tell it again.
Especially if there's news. Has anything happened recently?
No. Well, there is a few things, but for the most part, I just have a question about certain people that are constantly dealing with this, because there's this. I'm starting to think this was a stereotype, or they want us to think this way. So whenever we have something unfair or had a bad experience, we just got the wrong cop that day. But looking back from 3 years ago, remember I told you 3 years ago, that year where the cops were constantly pulling people over in my town. I haven't heard anyone get a warning in my town for any type of traffic violation. When my friend turned her ignition on, the police popped up on her because she wasn't wearing a seatbelt for about 8 years. So at first I thought, okay, this was a bad cop that, pulled me over when I was driving home late at night when the power was out. But now I don't know what people's view on this whole thing, like, oh, you could have gotten a different cop that day type thing, what you guys think of that. Or if it's just the way that the town is and they want us to think, oh, we got the wrong cop that day.
Did you understand that question, Michael?
Not clearly. I'm sorry. Can you just rephrase it simply, please?
Okay, so I for an example, last time I was here, I was telling everybody my experience of how I handled that cop, because in my town, there's a lot of crime. Like, we're talking homicides that the police don't bother investigating. There's a lot of crime now, and the town has changed. It's very dangerous. Stores have to shut down because of too much crime.
Yeah.
There has been an issue, especially before COVID, with too much crime and the cops only caring about traffic violations. Like, let's say somebody turned their ignition on, but you have to have a seatbelt, and right when they turn it on, the cop would pop up on you. That was a big issue before COVID. And so at first I thought, well, I'm going to teach this cop a lesson because I've dealt with too much crime, and this cop needs to learn, because I'm pretty connected where I live too. Like, I know certain politicians and in the town. So I had dealt with him, but now I'm looking back, I think that that's how the town was, but they want us to think. Like when I talked to the chief about it, about how this is too much, or went to coffee with a cop and said, this is too much with the traffic violations. They all said, well, if you got me, you wouldn't have been pulled over. And it's one of those sayings that people probably have heard is, oh, you got the wrong cop that day. But now I wonder if they want us to think that way. So, because it's like, well, if I got a different cop, I wouldn't have gotten in trouble. But at the same time, I've never heard of anyone getting a warning over the last 8 years because they haven't dealt with real crime. They're just dealing with this.
Okay, so all cops are different. I've had many warnings, and there some cops on that department I'm sure are going to be lenient, and I'm sure they're not all the same, but this is a nationwide practice. Whatever word you want to use, they all have to fulfill a quota or meet a standard of certain amount of contacts with people per month and a certain amount of tickets per month. And basically the city, they rely on these cops to basically bring in double roughly of what their salary is. Like in Washington State, the average city police officer makes about $75,000 a year. Is what he's paid salary for his salary, and then they bring in on average roughly $150,000 to the county per year, or city if they're a city cop. And so we've seen nationwide, I think 2 or 3 different police departments publicly say that yes, there are these quotas, but they're using a different phrase for the quota, like a performance limit or something, instead of using the word quota, because that would be illegal. So anyways, I've seen it on Steve Lato's law channel. He's a lawyer from Michigan State. He's talked about it. He does a video, I think, almost every day. And so if you go to his channel, you likely would see a title on his video saying quotas or something. But yes, these quotas things do exist, and they treat this as a business. And they do have to make a certain amount of contacts per month. And definitely you will find some that are more lenient than others and will have a heart, or, don't, feel like you need a ticket and they just want to give you a warning and, be nice. But, they have to work with these people every day. Their boss and their people is above them. And so, it's kind of like a family or a team, and, you get talked to if you didn't get enough contacts or enough tickets written to bring in the city that month. Because if they don't, they will find someone else to replace that officer. And that is generally how it's done. It's literally ran almost like a business.
Very good. That's a very astute analysis of the situation that we're dealing with. Yeah, and it's on one level. It's very simple, right? It's a business proposition. They're pirates. They have to make money. So everyone, I just want to thank you again for coming and being with us this month. It's really one of my favorite days of the month. We can just hang out. We can all be of like mind. Everyone's clear that it's our right to travel. We're not confused by the fraud, and we can talk about solutions and the future of freedom. For all of us. And we have wonderful people like Michael to show us the way. Next month, we'll be meeting again on the 7th of March. So I ask that you all come back, share your experiences. If you want to, take up some actions, if you get a ticket between now and then, if you want to follow Michael's lead, if you want to take some other actions from suggestions that you've heard from people on these calls, you can also watch on YouTube at the Commoner Law Group's channel. You can watch previous month's confabs to hear from Rick Martin and David Merland and others who have given their different approaches and their advice about what to do. There is a lot of different angles, a lot of different ways you can win depending on what winning means to you. And we all want to learn together. So come back next month. Is there anything else you'd like to say, David and or Michael, on sending people off? Any last words? We'll start with you, Michael.
Yeah, so whatever state you're in, if you are going to attempt to look for the statutes of your state, Washington State Revised Code of Washington And almost all the states either use that phrase, revised code of California or Wisconsin. And then some states use the words revised statutes of, Delaware or whatever. So if you're serious about finding laws of your state, you do a Google search first and type in revised code or revised statutes of your state. And then, for instance, when you do it for Washington State, the first website that comes up is the government website for this code, and it's 91 titles. And out of the 91, Title 46 is motor vehicles. And so every one of these other states, it'll be similar, and yours might be titled motor vehicles. But if you're going to be serious about finding your statutes, that's the way to start. I want to thank you, Clint, for having me on. I appreciate it a lot. I also want to give thanks to David Merlin, who definitely paved the way for me and many people, and Kurt Riggin and God for just putting a passion in my heart for justice and wanting to learn the law. If I didn't have that passion for it, I would never be as far as I am. So
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for being here and sharing your wisdom and your experience.
thank you.
Yeah, great point, man. Yeah, so that's a great point that you have mentors, Michael. What I noticed too is we're dealing with intergenerational freedom. We didn't just get here in the last few years. This has been a few decades or generations in the works. So this is great to see Carol learning for her son and other people there for your children. This is going to be a hot topic next year and the year after that and the year after that, because these predators, they're not backing down. So we're using technology to become aware of our rights and learn about the paperwork, learn from people like Michael and David and these other people out there, and then put it into action and get into the arena. This is where you start to feel the adrenaline and the thrill of being alive. And if you haven't seen the Joseph Campbell series, The Power of the Myth, very powerful, talking about life and death. And the only way you have life is to be on the edge. And that's what you're doing, Michael and Clint, and some of the people out there. Is we're alive. It is sacred to be breathing right now. Oxygen is precious. And it's so beautiful that we can gather once a month to kind of, get our energies together, hear what's going on, learn about new paperwork, and hopefully we'll get updates on what everybody's doing and what everybody's putting into the works, including my federal lawsuit, which I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm learning. And, we talk about that next month, perhaps, to share what's going on there, because all I know is that I'm a free man. I'm a son of God or child of God. It's something beautiful, just like all of you. And it's time we start acting like the kings and queens that we are, and not being superior than anybody, but not being inferior to anyone as well. And this seems to be the energetic force required for humanity to win as we get through the dark stages of this whole system collapsing. It's so funny. They call it the Great Reset, and Derek Bros and John Bush called it the Greater Reset. And I think I came up with something called the Good Reset. Whatever's going to happen, let's make it good for ourselves, good for our neighbors. And we can do that by learning the paperwork and learn the paper, the mindset to freely travel on the land. And so anyways, thanks Clint for putting this together, and Michael for being here, and everybody for participating in it. We are the ones we've been waiting for.
You're the ones we've been waiting for.
Until next month.
Yes. God bless everyone and have a very good night.
Thank you, Clint. See you guys.